All right, everyone, we're not going to hold this clip too long. We want you to see this clip. This brought a smile to our face. So watch this and we'll talk about it after it's over.
Something happened this weekend, and I have been struggling with it since I retired, but this weekend gave me closure.
Wow.
It really did. Like, it was fun. Obviously, it was fun. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, doing this for as long as I have and being involved in that, and how important that storyline was and is. But when it was over and I'm running out of the building, I'm good now. And I don't know if I needed, because I never, my last match was in the boneyard. There was nobody
Cinematic.
there.
Yeah.
Cinematic. It was, I don't know how you say it. It was like a moment of clarity that I had. Like, I'm okay now. Like, I'm not saying that I won't, I won't do that, something like that in the future, but I don't have that feeling in my chest like I've had since I retired, that I need like I hadn't come to peace with it. And like I knew, just like I knew when I knew it was over in the boneyard match at 4 a.m,
Yeah.
like, I'm good.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just, I had no clue, but I just knew once it was done, I was like, you're good, man. It's time to flip the page and go to the next chapter. And so that it was such a cool weekend all the way around. And then to finish up and then have closure to, the wrestling part of my career. And it was so cool, man. It was really cool. It was a great feeling. And you know, it's just, it's amazing. It really is an amazing feeling, because I don't have that pressure now that I've put. It's been difficult the last couple of years.
Oh, I know.
Especially at Mania. Like, even going to a regular premium live event. I've told you this. Like, I leave. I would leave before the matches, because I get so, like, to that point where I need to be out there. I need to be out
Yeah.
there. And so I was out there, and my goodness, what a moment to have. It's such a great storyline. But yeah, man, it was like, I can close this book, man, because
The whole time Undertaker was talking, I just had a massive, massive smile on my face because this is the best news, I think, for any wrestling fan, because everybody kind of knows that Undertaker, if you watch the Last Ride documentary or you just listen to any interview ever given discussing the Undertaker's retirement, this was not a he's going off into the sunset, he's done wrestling, uh, he's this is what he wants to do, right? His retirement from wrestling was almost 100% due to the fact that at this point, physically he just can't keep up with the beatdown of being a wrestler. I mean, the guy was a wrestler for forever, right? I mean, the guy was a wrestler forever. You figure he was wrestling, in the heyday of Hulk Hogan, or maybe a little bit after the heyday of Hulk Hogan, but still, right, during the Hogan era, he was wrestling during the Attitude Era, he was wrestling during, the Ruthless Aggression era, he was wrestling during the PG era, he was wrestling during, this new era, whatever you want to call it now. He's been wrestling all throughout that time, and he was one of the one guys, one of the only guys, and Vince has talked about this, before in interviews and stuff, that during the whole Attitude Era thing, when you had all of the, or I should say before the Attitude Era, but at the beginning of it, when you had all of these WWE talent jumping ship and going to WCW, he was one of the guys that stuck around. And I think, The Rock gets talked about a lot. Stone Cold gets talked about a lot because obviously they're megastars. Um, Triple H gets talked about a lot, and for good reason, because he was another one who was in WWE, and was a key part of the Attitude Era. But it was, the Undertaker was one of those guys who didn't even need a belt on him, right, to be a big deal. Like, it's not that any of these guys necessarily needed a belt, because neither did Austin or Rock or Triple H for that matter. But there's just something, the Undertaker was just his own thing, right? The Undertaker, his character, just in his just everything about him was made everything big time. You just felt like it was a big match. His storylines, whether it was um you know when he first started, it wasn't a jokey Undertaker. He was still a scary dude. You have Paul Bearer with the urn, and remember the Paul Bearer would have the urn over by ringside, and Undertaker was drawing power from it, but it was still more of a caricature of the Undertaker than what you get like during the Attitude Era, when he becomes more realistic than even that, right? He was a creepy dude before. He was one of the That's one of the reasons he was so successful, because during a time in WWE when there weren't a lot of great characters, he was a great character even before. But then the Attitude Era comes and you get the Ministry of Darkness, right? And that will forever be, I think, one of my favorite Undertaker characters, just because it was just so dominant. It was creepy. You're sitting there going, man, these guys are crazy. They're scary. Anytime you hear the Undertaker's music, you're going, what the hell is this guy gonna do? And then that ends up becoming the corporate ministry. And he was one of those guys who wasn't, they always say, like, well, Austin wasn't necessarily a good guy or a bad guy. The truth is, Austin was, in many, many cases, he was almost always the good guy, right? Even though he had a dirty mouth and he would, whatever, stunner basically everybody, he was always coming to the aid of whoever was, he needed to come to the aid of. And Undertaker did some of that too. But the Undertaker was truly somebody you really never knew what to think about. And even when he was doing some crazy crap, right? Even when he was in the Ministry of Darkness, or even in the corporate ministry in some ways, you still heard people cheering for him. It's kind of like The Rock now, right? The Rock is, even though The Rock is like clearly a heel, but you still heard some cheers. Like, that's the Undertaker, even in his day, was getting that kind of stuff, because no one really knew how to feel, because he was just such a great character. He fit the character perfectly. Then he becomes the American Badass. He becomes, then he kind of goes back to being the Dead Man. So he's done so many things, and he's been a key part of WWE for so long. And then you get to WrestleMania, right? And to hear his music hit, right, and to hear the roar of the crowd, because a lot of people were saying, well, I kind of wanted that to be Austin. It would have been better if it was Austin. I disagree completely, because nobody had Undertaker on their radar, right? There was a lot of rumor it could be Austin, it could be Austin. The fact that it was Undertaker was so much better, because nobody thought that was going to be the case. And then to see him and to see the choke slam, and then he's out, that was perfect, right? And for somebody that gave so much to wrestling and to all of us fans, somebody who, really made wrestling even better, right? Like, if you take the Undertaker out of wrestling, that's such a huge part that we would be missing. His character, that's why there was such this huge, the place erupted when they heard his music, because even now it's like we feel his pain, right? We want him to be out there. We want him to be the Dead Man still. Like, there's nothing better than that. When Undertaker's music would hit, when a lot of these stars' music hit, okay, they're gonna win the match, right? We get it. They're gonna win, whatever. We're happy for him. When Undertaker's music hit, you're like, man, this guy's whoever's in that ring. They're not just like, oh, I got to go up against a good wrestler here, or I got to go up against a tough sob. We're like, okay, he's going up against a guy who is gonna beat the crap out of him, right? It's kind of like that Brock Lesnar effect of, like, when you heard Brock's music, it's like, man, you know that this guy is coming in the ring and he's gonna beat the crap out of whoever's in there. And that's how you felt about the Undertaker. So hearing him talk about the closure that this moment gave him made me happy, and I'm sure any fan of wrestling, it probably makes him so happy, because that's all everybody wants for him, right? Be able to reflect on how great of a career you had, and to not, be caught up in, man, I wish I could still do it, because you don't want to ruin, you don't want to keep trying and get yourself hurt. That's always the thing. You need to know when to quit. And like he said he doesn't rule out doing something like this again, and we all hope he doesn't rule it out because we always want Undertaker to be a part of it. But it's good that now he can kind of just back away and say, man, and reflect on a career that is one of the best ever. So thank you all for watching. We will see you next time.